what I wanted to talk about today is really just how to onboard yourself. I know that as you're kind of starting out, a lot of attention is focused on the tools that you're going to use, the languages you're going to use, education, and then, how do I get that job? How do I interview? How do I come across really well in behavioral interviews or with whiteboarding? But then, once you've gotten that job, I feel like there's not a whole lot of information. And honestly, a lot of companies don't really do this right. And they can kind of leave you hanging in a sink or swim scenario at your brand new first dream job. So I think it's always worth having a plan for yourself on your first 30, 60, 90 days. How are you really going to get up to speed and start proving that, you're providing value, you're a good hire. And so, yeah, if you're joining like a super big company that has a mature, planned onboarding, there's a good chance that they've thought about this for you in a lot of ways. And so they probably have like a plan to put their new hires through. Even then, it might not always be ideal for you and for your learning scenario. So, again, kind of worth thinking about it. The smaller companies and startups, especially Silicon Valley startups, in my experience, they have no idea. They're just like, okay, here's some documentation. Tell us if you get stuck. Good luck. And so, you're oftentimes you're kind of stuck with like, do I ask questions? Where do I go for answers? And if you get too far into your job and you don't have a lot of those questions that you were expected to know up front, like it can look really bad and it can get hard to start asking those questions. But really, like having this type of plan is good anytime you switch jobs, right? Like every time you onboard to a new job, and you're probably going to do it more than once, especially if if you're not getting what you want where you first land. And so it's worth having the skills to be able to plan one of these. As a manager, I help my junior engineers and like all of my engineers who are new on board. So I really think of this as like 3 major phases. That's why 30-day, 60-day, at the 90-day mark. In phase 1, you're trying to learn as much as possible about your role and how it fits in with the company. You're getting your feet wet on technical details, and you're really just kind of like grabbing some easy tickets to get some quick wins. And phase 2, you're starting to contribute more at your level, the level of that is the expected level. You're learning new skills and you're just really applying yourself. Once you get to the phase 3, you should kind of be demonstrating mastery and taking initiative. So like it can take a little while to ramp yourself up to the point where you're really operating independently. Don't worry. But these are just some of the activities that I've found can kind of help get you up to speed quick. So first week, generally, I don't expect anything other than like HR activities for the first day, right? There might be some paperwork, you're filling out your benefits, they might have some orientation. I like to, start a list of questions that I'm going to ask. And then whenever I have a meeting with somebody one-on-one, I can go in and I can ask those questions. And if they're not the right person to give me an answer, then I can ask somebody else, and they might even tell me who to ask. I collect up documents to read. I might not necessarily read all the documents all at once, but at the very least, I maintain a list of resources and documents that people start to give me. Have a one-on-one with your direct manager and your team lead. Like set it up on the calendar. You'd be surprised how many people like go an entire week without talking to the person who's supposed to be managing them, or to the other, leadership on the team. And that's just, it's not a great way to start off a job. In your one-on-one, what do you start asking? It's good to just lay out their styles of communication. How do they want you to ask questions? When do they want you to ask questions? Are they a Slack person? Are they more of an email person? Do they want you to like jump on Zoom? Do they want you to do only, in person? But it's good to understand, how are you going to ask them questions? Any basic policies? How do you request time off? That can very quickly become important. I know I've started a job and had to immediately ask for time off because I had an emergency or I got sick. And when you're brand new and you don't know how that's going to work, it can be kind of complicated. Make sure you understand your meeting schedule. Set up one-on-ones regularly. Get into any Slack channels that you need to be in. Ask them, hey, which Slack channels should I be in? Which ones do you find useful? And then start really just understanding how Jira works, Git works, or if they're not using Jira, what are they using to track tickets and assign work? Gather a list of tools. Make sure that you have access to the tools that you're going to need. A lot of times, even getting the access involves requesting from somebody, asking an admin, and you don't want to be like 6 months in and say, oh yeah, I just never really got access to that tool. So can somebody, and they're going to say, well, what were you doing this whole time? So make sure that, if you don't get it, if it doesn't work, that you follow up and you say, hey, I tried to log in, that didn't work. Come back around. Help me out. Definitely understand the team's scope of work. Whatever team you're on typically has a smaller scope of work than like the entire product line. So understand what falls inside and what falls outside of your team's scope of work. Go through any like engineering specific onboarding. Usually there will be like just a straight up walkthrough to get a development environment running. Depending on the organization, that might be very strict, or they might be very, loose in requirements. I tend to say, use your favorite IDE. If you need a license, we'll pay for it. Get it running on your computer and like make your first commit. Getting that development work cycle going quickly. It's useful all the way through to management and beyond as an engineering leader. Even then, you're going to have a development environment that you can run code locally on, that you can test, that you can make changes to. If you see anything confusing or wrong in any of the instructions they give you, make a note and then ask how to update the documentation. Again, a lot of companies are like, oh, just update it. And then some other ones might be like, oh, no, this person does the updating, or we have to, review your updates. But make a note, make sure you know how to do that, ask somebody, and then set up your calendar with focus time. That's really important. Just lay it out so that you have regular 3 to 4 hour chunks every day to work on engineering. Otherwise, people will add meetings until you have nothing left, no time left to do actual engineering work. And you end up doing engineering work late into the night or early at the beginning. So yeah. So for the rest of the month, rest of your first month, have one-on-ones with each of your team members so that you, like, if you don't get it into the first week, that's usually fine, but like make sure that you get to talk with each of your team members. By like the second week, ask them questions, do intros, get their opinions, have them orient you to the code, find out what they typically work on, what types of tickets do they usually do, and is there something that they're really good at, really proud of, that they would be a good resource for? If you have to do front end and somebody's like, I really love UX, well, making sure that they help review your code is probably pretty good. Make sure that you really understand the team's process. How do we get stuff done? How do requests come in? How do we decide what work it is we're going to be doing? How do we test? Who has to review? How many reviews do I have? All of that. Do they have on call? Like, how does that work? Definitely like start to find out who to talk to for different questions in different domains. Usually you're going to have tech questions. You might have, my development environment isn't working. That might be somebody different than the person that you ask questions for. What should this product feature look like? Know who HR is, like understand basically like who are the touch points for the questions that I'm gonna want to ask. Making sure you understand the organization hierarchy and the different departments is also pretty important. That can be set up very differently at different organizations, and it can also kind of like end up with different attitudes towards how things work. So, if there's a large sales organization, you're probably going to end up getting a whole lot of sales requests. Where do those go? And the rest of the month is really where, you can start to dig in and read the docs that you had the list of in week 1. Take notes, mark down questions again. If there's something that sounds off, write it down. If there's, something that sounds like an opportunity, write it down. If there's something that's really outdated, make a note. And then as far as skills go, make sure that you understand what level you're at, the role and the expectations from your manager. So talk to your manager, ask them what their expectations are, and make sure that you understand how those expectations apply to your daily activities. If you have any skill gaps, start thinking about how you're going to work on those. Investigate tools. A lot of times the tools are very dissimilar between companies. You might never have seen how they, look at their logs before and how you do log searches. So read the documentation, do some practice, poke around the logs, make sure that you can search effectively. And then, complete any required onboarding trainings. A lot of times those are in a separate thing, so get them out of the way, and start picking up some easy tasks and low priority bugs. Like usually every team I've been on has like a whole big backlist log of, cute, just priority 4, 5 bugs. And nobody ever has time to do them except for brand new people who can come in and start picking them up and getting like a whole tour of the code base, making small minor changes. And it's getting you used to the workflow. And it's giving you a sense of what type of comments are likely to come back. What type of decisions do you have to make? Draw a diagram. Make sure that, you have like just a really good sense of what's going on in the code, what's talking to who, what, is there a database? Is there a cache? Is there, different layers? What's the front end look like? What do the components look like? How do they talk to each other? In the back end, what's the API look like? What's the models like? Are foreign key relationships. So yeah, just draw a diagram. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be formal. It just has to be enough for you. And then, if you have time for stretch goals, read and comment on a PR for somebody else. Ask a question. Say, like, I read this and I don't understand what you're doing here. So, can you explain? Try to talk up during every meeting. Ask questions in those meetings, speak up, make a documentation contribution. That's always really nice. And make sure to attend a work event. A lot of times there's ERG groups, employee resource groups, or there might be some fun social events. So like, get involved. Okay, So that's the first 30 days. It's big. 60 days is all about building confidence. Start to understand the software design philosophies being used. It might be just basic model view controller. It might be something more complicated. Are they using RESTful APIs? Are they using GraphQL? Databases, is it relational? Is it NoSQL? Like, what are they doing? Understand at the team level, any user workflows or user personas. Who are you helping? Who are you addressing? Research and practice any skill gaps. This is where you really do get to dig in. If you need to take a course on something, if you need to read documentation and practice or do a tutorial, take the time to sit down and just knock it out, because you'll have examples and like a framework from some easy examples for the rest of your time. Read a technical book, an article, dependency documentation, something relevant to your role, and talk about it, share it. Get really comfortable navigating the code base. Investigate an error that nobody else brought up. Go looking for an error, and make a new code contribution, not just fix another bugs, but like picking up like a product feature or something. Come up with a new tool, maybe. Do something new. For stretch, browse the rest of the documentation. Go take a look and see what else is available that people weren't necessarily recommending. Like, why isn't it on the top of their list? Identify and improve a team process. Is there something that the team's doing that's just inefficient? Like, let them know and say, suggest an alternative. Shadow somebody who goes on call. If you have an on-call rotation, it can be really helpful to like just jump in and say, hey, I want to shadow you while you do on call. What do you do? So in a safe environment where they're still responsible, you get to see how on-call works. Build a useful script or query or library function. Again, very role dependent. Create or update a dashboard, create or update documentation, and have lunch or coffee with an engineer from another team. That's always fun to see what the other teams are doing as well, and get some of that cross-team socialization. And, they might end up being a really good mentor or resource. And then by 90 days, I find it's really important to discuss your progress with your manager. Ask them, am I performing the way that you think I should be? What do I need to work on? If they say, yeah, you're doing great, then great. What do I have to do to get to the next level? Basically, everybody that gets hired, you're ideally in the first year, you're getting to at least I am competent at this level. Like I'm in the mid-range of my level. And so then you're kind of starting to move into, what does exceeding my level look like? What would I have to do to get to the next level? And create a plan, create some goals for that. Like, oh, if I need to learn more about this, it might take 6 months. So make sure that I have a plan. Make sure that you're comfortable picking up tickets of a level appropriate size, whatever that is at the company that you're at. If they're like, okay, I really only expect you to pick up small tickets that are well-defined, fine. Make sure you're comfortable, like really comfortable picking up small, well-defined tickets. And then if they tend to have less defined tickets, you're going to grow into that. You're going to start figuring out, well, how do I define those tickets? How do I go get the information that I need? Present your work at a demo. If they have demos, go for it. Shadow someone from another department, have coffee with a non-engineer. They can also be very informative. Suggest a technical improvement and, try to implement it. If there's something that you're like, okay, this is just really off, fix it. shadow an interview panel and start interviewing. I've definitely had, even my most junior engineers be involved in interviewing, because you're bringing on people who you're going to have to work with, and I want your input. And give your manager feedback. Tell your manager whether or not they're responding well to your questions, whether you're getting what you need out of them. Early on, did you get all the access that you needed? Like, did you have to ask 15 times? And, like, make sure that they're unblocking you when you need them to, and that you're able to talk to them well. Yeah. So that's it. Those are my slides. I am happy to answer questions.
Awesome. And you did have a question in the Q&A just about who should you make connections with and who should you touch base with at the beginning? Do you have like a list of everyone that you'd suggest trying to reach out to? I know you've gone through a few throughout the presentation.
Yep. So like right at first, make sure at least that you have a one-on-one with your direct manager and team lead. Absolutely go ahead and talk to the rest of your team, but like have a meeting with your manager and your team lead at minimum. Yeah, bad habits that I've seen among new hires. Definitely like not asking questions or thinking that they're a burden on other people, and because they feel like they're more of a burden on people who are probably really busy, they won't ask those questions. They won't tell people that they're blocked. They'll spend way too much time going around in circles and not really making progress on things. And then like even they'll try to hide it. They'll say oh no, everything's fine. And then 2 weeks later on something that's very small, it'll be like, yeah, no, I've been blocked this entire time. I don't know, like it turns out it's their dev environment, and we could have helped them fix it. Don't let things go that far. Give yourself some time to work on it. Give yourself some time to knock your head against the wall. But also, having new hires and having junior engineers is an investment by the team and by the company. They are investing in teaching you how to do these tasks and how to be a productive member of the team. And so a little bit of extra work up front to teach and to answer questions, as you become more skilled, like that was worth it. So definitely speak up and ask questions.
And that's also something we've been really trying to emphasize with everyone during CodeDay Labs too, because it's a problem right now. So I appreciate you bringing up that point.
Yeah. How do you ask someone to shadow somebody that's on call, and based on what? So again, depends on whether or not your company has an on-call rotation. So ask them, what is like what's involved in on-call, where do the alerts come from, and who is currently on call, how does that happen, how do you set up your rotation, and if somebody is going on call, say, hey, I'd really like to shadow you for that on call. As alerts come in, hopefully you can also get alerted, or they can point out where they're getting their alerts from, and how do you triage it? What where does this come from? What do you do first? Do you search for the logs? Is there a trace back that you try to read? A lot of times they'll look at it and say, oh, that's not even user facing, like it doesn't matter, ignore it. It's like, how did they come to that conclusion? Ask them those questions. Like a lot of times it's just they have it in their head, and they've learned it over a long time of doing it. Write those things down. It's really useful to have basically a run book. A lot of times companies don't provide a run book, so feel free to start one. But yeah, a lot of times this can just be like, from experience, this is how I do it. So you'll have to follow along with somebody who's done it a while. Is it common for companies to have a company wiki? Yes. I have seen mostly Confluence and some Notion usage from most startups. So there's usually a big old wiki. It can be very hard to find things. Neither one of them are really particularly good at like search. So I still maintain a whole list of bookmarks and URL links. A run book is basically like, you know, when this type of error comes in, what do I do? And it's just a document that will list type of error and then like steps to resolve. And so it's useful to maintain that type of a document. Sometimes they'll have one. A lot of times it won't be necessarily kept up to date. But when you do have one that is up to date and is fully documented, then it can be a really good resource for everybody. So that's one of those things where you put in a little bit of extra time and you become a multiplier for everybody, make everybody more efficient. Managers love that. Yeah. If you have a technical question, how long should we struggle with it before we ask someone? I usually try to give, I want people to give themselves a decent amount of time to try to solve it. But like put a number on it when you start. If you're like, this should be really easy, I can probably do it in an hour or two, and 2 hours go by and you have not done it, it's time to go ask somebody. If you're making progress, if you're like, you know, oh, I got an error. Okay, I fixed that error. Oh, there's another error. It's a different error, but like it's farther along. Keep working on it. That's fine. That's part of the learning process. But if you start to see the same error for 15, 20 cycles of like, I tried to fix it, it's time to ask. So tools to keep track of my plans. Most of the time I'll just straight up use a document, maybe a personal document in whatever tool they have. I'll do lists, I'll come back and check it. I've recently started using a tool called Obsidian, and I really like it. It's a great place to take notes and like very personal notes on things. So it's like outside of the company usage, and it's a lot of markdown, and it's just really useful. So I've gotten used to that. If a work policy says you can create your own weekly schedule, have I seen a weekly schedule that works better than others? So usually I want people to have a reasonable amount of overlap time with the rest of the team. So I, generally ask that there's usually some like core hours that would be really nice for people to be working at the same time, so that if you have a question, you can ask, and there's going to be people available to answer. If you need some meetings, that's when people schedule them. It's not always possible, and I wouldn't recommend going too far outside of the normal hours as a early level engineer. I've only really ever seen like complete, no time overlap with the most senior engineers who can work very independently. And they tend to be like in another country, in another time zone. And even then, we'll have to make plans for times to get together occasionally. Yeah. Working remote. So take breaks, go outside, move your computer around, take advantage of being, at home. It's really nice to work outside sometimes. Definitely, like don't just work all the time. it can be really easy to just blend work life and home life and never stop working on work. So set yourself, this is the cutoff time. This is when I put it away. And, don't go over that. Don't, be less available is the, at night. And that's within the culture of the company. Ideally, you're at a company that is like, no, we respect your work-life balance. So that's mostly what I would say. Flexibility in junior devs, it depends. And that one, like, I like to give my junior developers a certain amount of flexibility in taking on tickets. There might be some things, especially as I build confidence in their ability to do tickets that they've demonstrated through things that they'll pick up on themselves or volunteer for, then I'll start to give them more tickets in that kind of vein. If they tell me, like, I'm really interested in this, I'll try to get them tickets that they're going to enjoy and will also be useful. So like, definitely like talk with your manager on how that works. Make sure that, upfront as like just general expectation, they know what you enjoy and what you want to learn. A ticket. So a ticket is usually it's an item, usually in Jira, that has all of the information that you need and the status of the work, all the information you need, ideally, to like get started on the ticket. It should have a general description of the problem or the feature and the different information to kind of start investigating or working on the ticket. So yeah, if it's a bug ticket, it might be like, we saw this problem on the front end. This field isn't saving when you hit the submit button. Like, we change it and we hit save and we go to the other page and it's not showing up changed. It's like, okay, so that's the behavior that you're seeing. And now as the engineer, I have to go say, okay, where's that field? Why isn't it getting saved? Is it on the front end? Is it on the back end? Is it just that the other page isn't showing the changed answer? Like, it's in the database, right? Why isn't this one showing? So you kind of like start asking those questions. You can usually make notes on it and say, like, I investigated this, this is what I found. And then other people can read your notes and like give you feedback, answer questions, give you suggestions. And so it's like separate, but alongside code changes. Yeah, how did I get to be an engineering manager? So yeah, I taught myself how to code about 7-8 years ago now. And hi Kitty. And I got myself a job as a junior developer. I started working at a little itty bitty company, and I did backend Python. I did a little bit of front end. It wasn't as advanced as now. It was all Bootstrap and, yeah. Knockout JS. And then I got another job where I was a very full backend Python developer. I got another job where I was a senior engineer, backend Python. And I kind of started like expanding my skills into front end / full stack. When my manager quit, I told them that I was interested in managing. They gave me a team to basically be the team lead / manager of. I had 4 people that reported to me. And then I got another job where I was a full-blown engineering manager over 2 teams. I managed emails and payments at a company called Scribd. And I did that there for a couple of years. And then I moved on to another company called Doma. And then very, very recently, I switched jobs into a smaller startup called Kojo, and they do construction procurement automations for subcontractors. And I really like, my background before I taught myself to program was in construction. And so I'm like, I see the benefit of this. I want this to happen. And so now I'm managing 2 teams at a smaller startup that I'm hoping to help grow. So yeah, individual contributor versus manager. You can do either. You can totally do either. I would recommend being a manager if you like people, if you like the higher level process, if you want to build organizations instead of building technology. It's definitely like, it moves you into a different level and a different area of focus. I'm still very technical as a manager. Like, I'll help out, I'll do bugs, I'll investigate things. I have to understand the roadmap. I help prioritize the roadmap. I understand how much work something's going to be. I know who is interested in working on what. So then when I have a new project, I can kind of plan out the resources that we're going to, you know, say, okay, you focus on this, you focus on that. If you want to work on tech, if you are more interested in architecture, if you are good at looking at the larger picture in terms of, you know, 6 months down the line, are the platforms that we're on, is the technology that we're on, is that going to be a problem? What do we have to do to get from here to there as a technical organization? Like, that's the highest levels of individual contributor. And there does tend to be a narrowing towards the top of like, there's going to be fewer people in top, like at the top of their technical game. It's going to take longer for them to get there. Managers, there tends to be a really big need for managers and not enough of them. And so like, it's not the same skill set as engineering in a lot of ways. Like, it's good to have gone through it and to understand it and to be embedded, so that when you're evaluating people's performance, you can understand what they did. You can understand how to coach them to the next level. You don't necessarily have to do or be as productive in terms of just straight code. You're trying to help grow everybody and be more of that multiplier and representative to the rest of the organization. Yeah. But I love it. I really do. A lot of people warned me that I was going to hate it, and I don't. So.
All right, folks. Any other last questions for Katerina?
I threw a lot of information at you, so like, yeah.
This was an awesome talk. Thank you so much. I hope everyone took a lot away from this, because I think everything you said is super valuable, and I really appreciate you taking the time for this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.